Hi, are you taking the Canadian Citizenship Test? This video is number 4 in this series with all the facts and knowledge that you need to have. I will test you with questions and answers at the end of each section to help you prepare and to give you the best chance of passing the test first time. In this episode, we're going to cover the chapter entitled How Canadians Govern Themselves from the Discover Canada Study Guide. Let's start with learning the chapter and listening to the reading before we get to the sample questions from the test for this chapter.
How Canadians Govern Themselves. There are 3 key facts about Canada's system of government. Our country is a federal state, a parliamentary democracy, and a constitutional monarchy. Federal state. There are federal, provincial, territorial, and municipal governments in Canada. The responsibilities of the federal and provincial governments were defined in 1867 in the British North America Act, now known as the Constitution Act, 1867. In our federal state, the federal government takes responsibility for matters of national and international concern. These include defense, foreign policy, interprovincial trade and communications, currency, navigation, criminal law, and citizenship. The provinces are responsible for municipal government, education, health, natural resources, property and civil rights, and highways. The federal government and the provinces share jurisdiction over agriculture and immigration. Federalism allows different provinces to adopt policies tailored to their own populations and gives provinces the flexibility to experiment with new ideas and policies. Every province has its own elected legislative assembly, like the House of Commons in Ottawa. The 3 northern territories, which have small populations, do not have the status of provinces, but their governments and assemblies carry out many of the same functions. Parliamentary democracy. In Canada's parliamentary democracy, the people elect members to the House of Commons in Ottawa and to the provincial and territorial legislatures. These representatives are responsible for passing laws, approving and monitoring expenditures, and keeping the government accountable. Cabinet ministers are responsible to the elected representatives, which means they must retain the confidence of the House and have to resign if they are defeated in a non-confidence vote. Parliament has 3 parts: the sovereign, a queen or king, the Senate, and the House of Commons. Provincial legislatures comprise the lieutenant governor and the elected assembly. In the federal government, the Prime Minister selects the cabinet ministers and is responsible for the operations and policy of the government. The House of Commons is the representative chamber made up of members of Parliament elected by the people, traditionally every 4 years. Senators are appointed by the Governor-General on the advice of the Prime Minister and serve until age 75. Both the House of Commons and the Senate consider and review bills, which are proposals for new laws. No bill can become law in Canada until it has been passed by both chambers and has received royal assent, granted by the Governor-General on behalf of the sovereign. Living in a democracy, Canadian citizens have the right and the responsibility to participate in making decisions that affect them. It is important for Canadians aged 18 or more to participate in their democracy by voting in federal, provincial, or territorial and municipal elections. The following are the steps for the legislative process in Canada, or how a bill becomes law. Step 1 is called first reading. The bill is considered read for the first time and is printed. Step 2 is called second reading. In this step, members debate the bill's principle. Step 3 is the committee stage. At this stage, committee members study the bill clause by clause. Step 4 is the report stage. At this stage, members can make other amendments to the bill. Step 5 is called the third reading. At this stage, members debate and vote on the bill. Step 6 is the Senate stage. The bill will follow a similar process in the Senate. Step 7 is called royal assent. The bill receives royal assent after being passed by both houses. Constitutional monarchy. As a constitutional monarchy, Canada's head of state is a hereditary sovereign, a queen or king, who reigns in accordance with the Constitution, the rule of law. The sovereign is a part of Parliament, playing an important non-partisan role as the focus of citizenship and allegiance, most visibly during royal visits to Canada. Her Majesty is a symbol of Canadian sovereignty, a guardian of constitutional freedoms, and a reflection of our history. The royal family's example of lifelong service to the community is an encouragement for citizens to give their best to their country. As head of the Commonwealth, the sovereign links Canada to 53 other nations that cooperate to advance social, economic, and cultural progress. Other constitutional monarchies include Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Australia, New Zealand, the Netherlands, Spain, Thailand, Japan, Jordan, and Morocco. There is a clear distinction in Canada between the head of state, the sovereign, and the head of government, the Prime Minister, who actually directs the governing of the country. The sovereign is represented in Canada by the Governor-General, who is appointed by the sovereign on the advice of the Prime Minister, usually for 5 years. In each of the 10 provinces, the sovereign is represented by the Lieutenant Governor, who is appointed by the Governor-General on the advice of the Prime Minister, also normally for 5 years. The interplay between the 3 branches of governments, the executive, legislative, and judicial, which work together but also sometimes in creative tension, helps to secure the rights and freedoms of Canadians. Each provincial and territorial government has an elected legislature where provincial and territorial laws are passed. Depending on the province or territory, the members of the legislature are called members of the Legislative Assembly, or MLAs, members of the National Assembly, or MNAs, members of the Provincial Parliament, or MPPs, or members of the House of Assembly, or MHAs. In each province, the Premier has a role similar to that of the Prime Minister in the federal government, just as the Lieutenant Governor has a role similar to that of the Governor-General. In the 3 territories, the Commissioner represents the federal government and plays a ceremonial role. Canada's system of government. Parliament is comprised of 3 elements: the sovereign, who is represented in Canada by the Governor-General, the Senate, which is appointed on the Prime Minister's recommendation, and the House of Commons, which is elected by voters. The 3 branches of government are the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. The executive branch consists of the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. The legislative branch consists of the Parliament. The judicial branch consists of the different levels of courts in Canada. At the highest level, there is the Supreme Court of Canada, which consists of 9 judges that are appointed by the Governor-General. The Federal Court of Canada and the provincial courts are also part of the judiciary.
Which are the 3 types of government in Canada? Federal, local, and township, provincial, territorial, and municipal, or provincial, state, and municipal? The answer is provincial, territorial, and municipal. The 4 different governments in Canada are each responsible for the administration of different things. City Hall in Toronto is home to the Municipal Government of Toronto. Where were the responsibilities of provincial and federal governments defined? The 1890 Act of Good Government, the 1945 Act of Post-War Reassignment, the 1867 British North America Act, now known as the Constitution Act, 1867. The answer is the 1867 British North America Act, now known as the Constitution Act, 1867. The Constitution Act of 1867 helped to enforce Canada's newfound parliamentary democracy and system of government. Which of the following is the federal government responsible for? Defence, currency, criminal law, citizenship, natural resources, health, education, or local government elections? The answer is defence, currency, criminal law, and citizenship. The federal government in Canada is responsible for matters of national and international concern. These include defence, currency, criminal law, citizenship, foreign policy, and interprovincial trade. Which of the following best describes Canada's system of government? Parliamentary democracy, theocracy, direct democracy. The answer is parliamentary democracy. Canada's system of government is best described as a parliamentary democracy. This means that the political party or coalition of parties which has the most representatives in Parliament forms the government. Cabinet ministers are responsible to the elected representatives. If they are defeated in a no-confidence vote by the representatives, they have to resign. True or false? The answer is true. In order to keep the government accountable, cabinet ministers must resign if they are defeated in a no-confidence vote. What are the three parts of the Canadian Parliament? The Sovereign, the Senate, and the House of Commons. The House of Lords, the Senate, and the House of Commons. The Province, the Judges, and the House of Commons. The answer is the Sovereign, the Senate, and the House of Commons. Parliament in Canada is based in Ottawa and has three parts: the Sovereign, the Senate, and the House of Commons. As a constitutional monarchy, Canada's head of state is the Sovereign. The Sovereign is represented in Canada by which appointed official? The Senate, the Governor-General, the legislators? The answer is the Governor-General. The Sovereign, King or Queen, is part of Parliament, playing an important non-partisan role as the focus of citizenship and allegiance. Pictured is Queen Elizabeth II on a visit to Toronto in 2010. Each provincial government has an elected legislature where provincial and territorial laws are passed. True or false? The answer is true. In each province, the Premier serves a similar role to the Prime Minister in the federal government. In the three territories of Canada, what is the role of the Commissioner? To represent the provinces in legal matters? To act on behalf of the Prime Minister when they are occupied? To represent the federal government and play a ceremonial role? The answer is to represent the federal government and play a ceremonial role. The Commissioner completes ceremonies such as swearing in new members of the Legislative Assembly, assenting to bills, and signing government documents. I hope that was helpful. For the next episode in this series, just click here. That's on federal elections. Or to access all of the episodes in this series included in my full course, you can click on the link in the description below.